Hey, what's going on, guys? Just hitting the sack. It's 1:32 in the morning. How's everybody doing? I just wanted to touch base with everybody here today. See who's on, see who's up on the Saturday night. I hope everybody's doing okay. I was just about to hit the sack, and I've kind of been in deep thinking mode about what I want to do in my life, and kind of been frozen in this mode here. Tim Jones, how you doing? I don't know who Scott Height is. How you doing, Scott? But Gino Perez, I'm not sure if you're the guy in Sacramento. How you doing? But anyways, guys, whether people are on here or not, or want to say hi or not, it doesn't make a difference. But how you doing, Gino? I was in this phase of my life here where I'm doing a lot of thinking about what I want to do. And to put it in a nutshell, I just wanted to talk about some things that were on my mind, particularly in my life, not necessarily the world, but my life. And we'll get to it right now. Folks, we all know that we're living in a society at this point of extreme inflation. And there's no end to this, you know. And the bottom line is, folks, that we got to make best of what we got. That's the bottom line. And life, the way life works, basically is, it's really hard to get what you really want. And I'm not saying don't strive for it, but it's a long shot. It's better just to live life more realistically and just accept yourself for who you are and accept your lot in life and accept about what your life is going to be like. And a lot of people, you know, they have a concept or idea in their lives that they want to take off. How you doing, Gino? I'm not saying don't live your dream, folks. I'm not saying don't strive. But I think it's more important to be realistic. And that's where I'm at my point of my life right now. When I was younger, I had a lot of energy and I had a lot of aspirations and goals, and there's a lot of things I wanted to do. And as I get older, I start to realize what my limits are. You know, it's a big difference being 20 years old and 40 years old. And with time and age comes wisdom. You know, when I was looking back at my life decade by decade, I can't believe I've lived 4 decades. Well, I guess 3, but I'm my 4th decade. And you start to realize in life, when you reach my age, that you're about halfway there, give or take. And you start to realize that it's better to take it easy. Rewinding my life and looking back at retrospect, I look back at being 10 years old. And it was around 1990. I was about 9 years old. I remember my family moving to Chicago. And after a few years, my family pretty much split apart. People went their way, and it was different. The 80s, where I grew up as a young kid, were a time of joy and family togetherness. A time to say no to drugs, Ronald Reagan, great music, MTV, Star Search, all the great television shows. And it was a time of a lot of family togetherness, I remember, in the 80s. Working my way up to 10 years old. The 90s were a very interesting time because when you look back in the 90s, it was a time for great music, hip-hop, rap. It was a time for great times in professional wrestling and NBA basketball with Jordan and the Bulls. And it was a great decade of sports and sports entertainment wrestling. It was also a very difficult decade for me because I was going through the process and motions of going through terrible high school, which I despise. I hate. I couldn't stand it. So the 90s had its ups and downs. Definitely a lot of good memories and a lot of good times, but also a lot of tough times. It was ups and downs, but overall it was pretty good. But it wasn't as good as the 80s, but it was pretty good. Fast forward, we get into the 2000s. Well, back in, let's just say 1991, I was 10 years old. We had the Gulf War, Sergeant Slaughter versus the Hulkster for the belt. Family moved to Chicago. Fast forward to about in the 2000s, going into the 90s, we had the tech boom, obviously, and all that. 2001, I was 20 years old. It was a horrific year. The 9/11 attacks, which ever since then our country isn't the same. The 2000s was a very, the 2000s, the teens, or the 2000s, were a very, very difficult time. It got worse because we had the 9/11 attacks, and then we had the war in Iraq, which was not necessary. The 2000s was an interesting time. It was a time where, I was basically sowing my wild oats, being a kid, having all the energy. And if you guys were with me, give me a 69, just recollecting. So the 2000s was a time of, we had some bad times in the 2000s, but also, I believe the 2000s were a decade in my life where I just sold a lot of my wild oats. In a way, it was a crazy time in my life, living in my 20s. Moving forward from the 2000s, we get into 2010. And right before that, we had a huge... I got laid off of my job. I was on unemployment for a long time, and the economy went down and tanked. A lot of people lost their jobs. But at the same time, things weren't as expensive as they are now. So you could get by with a little bit. Really going into the 2010s, it was a exciting time in my life in some ways, and a difficult time. From 2010 on forward, I was wrapping up my employment benefits and all that. And then finally I got back to work around 2012. And worked a couple of years. And we got into a very interesting time in my life. Around 2014, I got terminated at my job, and I won unemployment benefits. And I started my journey on YouTube. All the ups and downs, all the trials and tribulations. A lot of good times, a lot of bad times. And it was interesting while it lasted, going into basically the time of my life where I was in social media full time. And I did what I had to do to get through the 2010s. And there are some good times and there are some bad times. Right around 2020 comes around. Well, before that, in the 20-teens, I lost my dad and uncle. And that was tough. And after that, I continued with YouTube, and 2020 was pretty much the end of my YouTube channel. Ushering in the 2020s has been a horrific experience in a way where we started off with the virus and the lockdowns and the inflation and the deflation. And the 2020s are, it's been good and bad. The lockdowns, the people getting sick and dying, but at the same time, the political divide in the country. Yeah, gas went up today in Michigan at $4.39 a gallon. Be prepared, it's going to only get worse, unfortunately. Stay safe down there. Yeah, thanks, Tim. I appreciate it, brother. We started off 2020 very rocky. You know, we had the pandemic. What year did Kobe Bryant die? I mean, that was horrific. Kobe Bryant is a huge name in basketball. You know, and what year did he die? Was it 2020? I'm trying to remember, but 2020 was a real tough year. And 2021 was also tough, but it got a little better. 2022 is shaping up to be pretty bad, but it's been ups and downs. But I just want to say in a nutshell, folks, after the 2010s are done, pretty much my career on YouTube is done. Here it is, I lost my dad and uncle. And I'm starting to realize I've got to go a different direction and path in my life. And 2020 was a wake-up call for everybody, just like 2008 was. But now we're dealing with a different animal. We're dealing with a whole different animal here. And I don't know what to say, that it's gotten to the point where, just living a life is tough, So it's come to the point of the 2020s. It's all about being prepared. It's all about the end of the world. It's all about RV life. The RV life blossomed and fun and games in the 2010s, but now it's serious business, serious industry, and it's a whole different outlook. 2020s is the year of the decade of I guess we can call it the beginning of the end, or the time should be prepped or prepared. Because it just seems like every year in the 2020s since it started, bad things have been happening, more bad than good. And that's the trend. And I think that, that's pretty much what it is. That's pretty much the mindset and the vibe of life now in the 2020s. People are so introverted. People are so serious. People are so they have no joy in their lives. I see sometimes people are happy here and there, but overall, I think that a lot of the joy has been sucked out of people's souls, because it's been a tough ordeal for everybody. Well, that's right, Tim Jones. But you know something, man? You don't have to have a lot of money in life to be happy. You know what I learned? You need a little bit of money to do what you got to do, but you don't have to be rich. And in life, you got to do everything in moderation. When I was younger, I used to work a lot of hours. It got me sick. Mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It's not healthy. So, the bottom line is, you have to do everything in moderation. And if you do that, you'll be happier in life. Everything in moderation. That's my motto. And besides that, try to work smarter, not harder. A lot of people work harder, not smarter. They don't use their brains, they use their brawn. And as you get older, you start getting wise, you start using your mind more. And the people, for the most part, that are successful in life are the ones that use their brains, not their body. Of course, there's athletes that make a lot of money, but those are a very small percentage of the population. In reality, most people who have a lot of money use their brains more than their brawn. Their God-given brain. Their talents, their knowledge, their abilities. I think with the new China lockdowns, it's going to screw the economy. You know what? I haven't been following none of that really, because it's all bad news. But the bottom line is that our country is not what it used to be. We're for the most part, we're not a manufacturing economy anymore. We've turned into a service-based, hospitality-based tourism industry, and I guess we get more stuff than what we import. And that's why the new and up-and-coming industrial revolution leader is China, because they make everything there pretty much, for the most part. And I guess that's what we used to be. We're in a whole different world now. The United States of America, and as you see more and more and more the have and the have-nots. And that's just the trend. I think at this point, really, in our country with this decade and what we're going through and what we're doing, we've completely changed as a country from an industrial power manufacturing base to just pretty much a service-based, tourism-based, hospitality service economy. And when you don't have your manufacturing base, you lose a lot of jobs, and you lose the standard of living and the quality of life and jobs and money and economy. So what we're going to do to bring companies back here, I don't see anything happening. I mean, it's just pretty much Bill Clinton signed NAFTA. That's it. He sealed their fate. The bottom line is the company's going to do whatever they can to be profitable at the end of the day. And when you don't make stuff here, and when you offshoot jobs somewhere else to save money, whether it's a customer service job, whether it's manufacturing, whatever it is, the bottom line is you're trying to enrich your company more than the country itself. And that's a very, very toxic mindset and belief. But that's the reality of the world. So anyways, moving up here and progressing, the 2020s have been scary, uncertain, unpredictable, and that's what I've seen. And I just feel a vibe in the air that everybody is just scared about what they're going to say and do, and just careful, and just preparing themselves for the worst is yet to come. I think things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. How much worse? Who knows? But that's the trend. And that's why I see a lot of people that aren't happy. And that's the bottom line. With that being said, folks, to cap off what I'm saying here, the 2020s have been a tough decade, and things are going to get tougher, and that's the indicator. And we all got to be prepared, and we all got to do what we got to do, and that's the bottom line. You know? So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pop on out here because I got to get some sleep. Biden has ruined this country. He's not running into the ground, and he still has 2 years. Well, listen, it is what it is, folks. We're dealing with a lot of stuff and multiple things, and not one person or one company or one individual can solve our problems. So the bottom line is, we all know it's going to happen. People are way too sensitive these days. The bottom line is this. Whether it's Biden, whether it's Trump, whether it's anybody else, we got a lot of problems to deal with. And things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. But, you know, the bottom's going to fall out because we're printing out money that's not backed by nothing. And this whole world monetary system is going to change. I believe we're going to go to digital currency. And the dollar's probably going to crash. And our standard of living is going to go down, and that's the bottom line. And you got to do what you got to do to make ends meet. That's the bottom line. You got to be prepared. And that's what we all got to do. At the end of the day, be responsible, be prepared, and do what we got to do. Because this ain't going to be no gravy train getting out of this hole. In other words, to put it in layman's terms, we've dug ourselves so deep that there's no way to getting out, that we're going to get basically buried alive by this avalanche. And unfortunately, a lot of people are just not going to make it. I don't mean to be horrific or anything like that, but that's where it seems to the trends to be going, and I don't know what's going to turn it around, you know. But I know one thing, we're dealing with limited resources. And we have a lot of people in this country and a lot of limited resources, and that's what I've been noticing. People they are predicting a recession in the next 3 to 6 months. Get ready. Yeah, I believe that. I mean, with the rising cost of goods and services, with the inflation, with the pandemic on top of that, and then the war in Ukraine, and people just being scared to spend money and get the economy going, it's just a dog-eat world. And, you know, there's nothing that we can do about it but just go through the motions, you know. So, the reality is, those that have to lose the most are going to lose the most, and those who don't have the least lose the least, because the bottom line is, when you have an economy like ours, we're pretty much not in a good position. Well, I gotta get some sleep, folks. With that being said, I'm gonna get out of here. Hope you guys have a good night. Stay strong, be prepared, do what you gotta do. And that's all you can do, because at the end of the day, folks, it's going to be tough for all of us. All right, folks, God bless you. Good night. I got to get some sleep. We'll talk later. Love you guys. Sleep, have a good night. See you guys later.